So I really want to thank Kimon for this good news gift. I've known Kimon for many, many years, and I've always at the beginning thought he was the most shy, reserved, soft-spoken person. The only times I saw him come to light was when we started talking about the human spirit and about what makes people tick.
When I started in 2018, I felt quite overwhelmed by, I think, quite severe South Africa fatigue. It was at the height of state capture, it was at the height of everything being written about corruption, it was the height of a state that felt like it was falling apart, and public officials who just weren't doing what they were supposed to do. So I wanted to go out and find another story because I'd worked in schools for many, many years, and I know that there are these can-do teachers out there. So I wanted to go out and find another narrative and find another story for myself and something that I could share with a broader public. It's not that easy to convince someone, once I found them and once I'd read a bit about them and so on, that I actually want to come and spend a day at your school. And can you ask your principal, and I'm going to spend the whole day, I'm going to be shadowing you, I'm going to be speaking to you for 2 hours afterwards, I'm going to come back the next day. And people say, but who are you? I mean, why should I invite you? Why should I bring you into my space? So it took a lot of work just to kind of get there. And I wanted to speak to a diversity of teachers in different parts of the country. Some days I left these interviews feeling really quite elated and uplifted by these amazing people. But some days I left feeling very drained, just drained, because some of these teachers have been through a lot, and some of the kids at these schools have been through a lot. And yet people carry on. Kraaifontein is the murder capital of South Africa. I quote in here the stats about Kraaifontein. It's an incredibly traumatized part of South Africa. And Stephen is the head of maths and the head of grade 11 at that school. And he's a man who's had to work through a lot in his own background. So he says to me, I have made it through this life, he says, of this surprising achievement. I have made it. Someone was looking out for me. There must have been a bigger power that protected me from all those things. I mean, I grew up in Mitchell's Plain. Even when I lived in Belhar, there was drugs all over the place, gangsterism all over the place. There is a God that looks out for me and gives me strength to do what I need to do. Because sometimes I get tired, sometimes I get frustrated, and I just want to give up. And then I realized there is a bigger purpose to all of this. Viktor Frankl was an Austrian psychiatrist and a Holocaust survivor. He doesn't write about his experience of being in these camps. He writes about his attitude and the attitude of others that he saw around him of being in these camps, which is kind of a different story. And he says, everything can be taken from a man but one thing, the last of the human freedoms, to choose one's own attitude in any given set of circumstances, to choose one's own way. And for me, that is the takeout, that we choose our attitude and we choose our way. More than anything, a can-do teacher cares. She harnesses her resilience and her willingness to evolve, to make things happen despite the circumstances. This agency drives her to do the best for those in her care, as she helps children imagine and realize their greatest possible selves. So I don't know if you know Artist Press Studio in Newtown, up the road here. They've got young artists, some of them 1 or 2 years out of school, literally. And they took this on as a project. So they did these beautiful portraits of these teachers, and there's details of them up front. Each teacher has a symbol. So for example, this teacher Favor, her symbol is the wind, and you can see the wind represented there. And it was quite a process getting to the point where we had our artworks. And what I learned is that you can't ask a 19-year-old art student to read a 4,000-word story about a teacher. So we worked with the symbols, we gave some quotes, we did quite a lot of workshopping with them. This teacher symbol is a flower. And I just thought that these teachers deserved a portrait more than a photograph.
Kimon, what you've done is you've identified exceptional individuals who are intrinsically motivated. Mm-hmm. The light comes from within, and it drives them, and nothing phases them What about the extrinsic context? How do we create that, create the conditions that will elicit the light from within?
So the dominant narrative in education is to blame teachers and the unions for everything that's wrong. And this book is, I think, a trailblazer in terms of telling a positive story. Not just of how many? 17?
16.
16.
Yeah.
But actually these 16 represent 16,000 plus more.
Yeah.
And if we empower that agency and professional collaboration and critical reflection, we could do a great deal in this country. But you've got to start by changing the narrative.
Thank you.
I have to do all my marking and all the marks first, and then I can read it afterwards, which is next week.
Thanks so much. I appreciate you coming.
It's a life. I'm gonna shoot it.